how to join the MLC, Membership 101. So let's actually start by making sure everybody really understands who should join the MLC. And we have this cool catchphrase we like to use called connect to collect. Who should connect to collect? So what that really means is who should become a member of the MLC. In other words, who should connect with the MLC in order to collect their digital mechanical royalties, right? So who should connect to collect? Well, the answer to that, if I'm trying to put it very simply, is the party who administers the publishing for the song in the United States. Don't worry, I'm going to explain what I mean by administers in just a few seconds, but it's the party that is in charge of administering the publishing for the song in the United States. It is worth mentioning that this works differently than things do with a performing rights organization like ASCAP or BMI, for example. For ASCAP and BMI and the other PROs, there is a writer share and a publisher share that happens. That is not the way things work with mechanical royalties. There is essentially only a publisher share, and that share represents the party that is administering the publishing. So keep that in mind as we keep going through this. So I've created a new kind of way of explaining this. Let's see how this goes. So let's first start by understanding what we mean when we say publishing administration, or who is administering the publishing, right? So music publishers do really two big categories of activities. The first are what we like to call creative publishing activities. So these are things that involve cultivating the songwriter's creativity, like having them be involved in writing camps and doing co-writes with other songwriters. There's activities that involve pitching that music, pitching those songs to music supervisors that license them for use in film and television, and pitching those songs to recording artists who might be looking for new music for their next single or their next album. So those are the kind of activities a music publisher does. And some music publishers are also involved in selling sheet music, right? Sometimes they'll utilize a company that specializes in selling sheet music, but these are all the different activities that a music publisher does to help really cultivate those songwriter skills and get that music out there, right? Separately from those, music publishers also do a whole host of what we call administrative activities. So these involve things like registering songs with performing rights organizations. In the US, it would mean registering songs with the MLC. It means tracking and collecting royalties from PROs in the MLC and registering songs with the US Copyright Office, for example. These are just a couple of examples. There's a lot more other things that go into administering the publishing. But when we say somebody is administering the publishing, we mean they are responsible for doing these administrative activities. So let's think about this now from the point of view of a US-based songwriter or publisher, right? Somebody who has the rights to a song in the United States. And we can do this analysis on a song by song, or in other words, song level basis. So when we talk about something called a self-administered songwriter, what we are talking about is a songwriter who is doing all of these things on their own. And frankly, all songwriters start off this way. They start like this. You don't become administered or published by some other company until you proactively sign up with one or enter into a contract with one, right? So all songwriters generally start as a self-administered songwriter, where they are doing all these things on their own. Sometimes we also call these an independent songwriter, meaning there's no company helping them out with these activities. They're doing these on their own, okay? So that's different than an administered songwriter. In an administered songwriter scenario, the songwriter's handling all those creative activities on their own, but they've signed up with a publishing administrator to do those administrative activities. So an example of a publishing administrator would be Song Trust, for example. CD Baby used to have CD Baby Pro Publishing. Now they have something else that does some of these things, but not all of these things, right? So publishing administrators provide some or all of these different services to a songwriter or even to a publishing company. So if you are an administered songwriter, it means there is a publishing administrator handling these activities on your behalf for the songs that you have signed up with that administrator, right? So let's say you've been doing this for a long time. You might have some songs that are signed up with a publishing administrator, but some other songs that you are handling entirely. So this is a song by song analysis. You have to ask the question for each song, who is administering the publishing for that song, right? And then arrive at the answer. And then the third scenario, and if you might need to move my little picture out of the way if it's blocking part of the screen, is a published songwriter. In the case of a published songwriter, they have a publisher doing all of these things on their behalf, right? And again, it might be that you can imagine, there could be a songwriter that has different songs that fall into all three of these categories. So maybe the first 10 songs you wrote were with a publishing deal, and you have a publisher that is handling all those 10 songs. And then you came along, you decided to write another 10 songs and you signed those up with a publishing administrator, but you're still handling all the creative aspects for those 10 songs. And then you wrote the last 10 songs, the last 10 in your catalog of 30, where you are handling everything, right? So you might be a songwriter where some of your songs are under each of these three scenarios, and that's totally fine. The key here is understanding who is administering the publishing for that song, because that is the party that needs to join the MLC, needs to collect with the MLC and register that song that they are administering, right? So in my crazy scenario of one songwriter who's got 10 songs under each of these categories, right? In that case, that songwriter, because 10 out of those 30 are administered by the songwriter, they will join the MLC, but they will only register those 10 songs that they administer. They will not register all 30 songs, right? So, okay, so hopefully that helps clear this up a little bit. Let's talk a little bit more about somebody who's based outside of the United States. Let's say you're a songwriter or publisher based outside the United States, and let's talk about your options for collecting your digital mechanical royalties, right? So option one is if in your country there is a mechanical rights organization, in other words, a mechanical collective rights management organization, or CMO for short, a mechanical CMO in your country. Often in many countries, that CMO, that mechanical rights organization, is connected to the performing rights organization. Sometimes in some countries, one organization does both. In the US, we separate them, but in some other countries, the mechanical rights organization and the performing rights organization are one organization. So you might have a mechanical rights organization in your country, and you could sign up with them and authorize them to collect your mechanicals from all over the world, right? Including the United States. Or you could perhaps decide that actually what you want to do to collect your US digital mechanicals is you want to become a member of the MLC directly, but that you're also going to sign up with that mechanical rights organization in your country to collect your mechanical royalties from everywhere else in the world other than the United States. The key here is you have to talk to the mechanical rights organization in your country to find out if option two is even allowable, right? Some might allow you to do that and separate the US out and collect from us directly. Others might say, nope, it's all the world, or it's all or nothing, right? And so you have to use them for everywhere. So we can't tell you the answer to that. You have to talk to the Mechanical Rights Society in your country to find out if option 2 is even an option, and you have to decide if that makes sense for you or not. So these are really your choices if you're based outside the United States. What I will also point out is that on our website, if you go to the top and you see the membership button, if you click on that button halfway down the page is a link that takes you to this website page that lists all of those outside the United States mechanical rights organizations, those CMOs that are members of the MLC that we pay. So for example, if you go with option 1, in your country, then we will pay that Mechanical Rights Society, and then they will pay you. You will not become a member of the MLC because they collect on your behalf. So if you're not sure if the Mechanical Rights Society in your country is a member of the MLC and collecting from the MLC, you can look on this list and see if they're listed there. Okay. All right. So next steps, right? If you are particularly a US based songwriter, right? Figure out which of those columns applies to your songs. And if it turns out you are self-administered, some of your songs are self-administered, then you need to sign up and become a member of the MLC, right? Connect to Collect. And then you're going to also go through registering your songs with us. We're going to cover song registration in another webinar. We're not going to get into that in this webinar. In this one, we're going to just focus on how to sign up and become a member of the MLC. But you will need to do that. And if you are a songwriter who has realized, actually, I have an administrator or I have a publisher, then you are not going to become a member of the MLC, but we do invite you to look up your song data in our public search. That's our database. It's available for anybody to search. You don't have to be a member. You don't have to have a login. You just search on our website. I'm going to show you that page in a second, and look up your songs, make sure that they're there, and make sure that you see your administrator or your publisher's name on them with the correct share, right? That will let you know that that administrator or that publisher has registered that song with us and claimed your share. We will pay them, and then they will pay you, right? For any of those songs that are administered or published by an administrator or a publisher. So 2 quick peeks at some website pages. The first, which is where we're going to take a deep dive in a second, is this Connect to Collect button on our website, right? Our website is themlc.com. And up in the top right, that big blue button, Connect to Collect, that is where you start your journey to become a member. We're going to look at that in detail in just a few seconds. And I just wanted to highlight for those of you who might turn out not to need to become members, right? You can get to our public search, same website, themlc.com, top right. It's that button to the left of Connect to Collect, says public search. That's what you will click on, and then you can search for your works. All right, so I'm going to come out of screen share. Now I'm going to invite my colleague from our outstanding support team, Raleigh, to join me. Come on in. There you are. Hi, Raleigh. How are you?
Good. Thanks, Serena.
Awesome. So thank you for bringing your expertise to this session and joining me. I would love for you to go ahead and take over the screen, and let's walk everybody who's joining us through these sign-up screens.
Let's do it.
All right.
All right. Let me just share my screen here. All right. Serena, can you confirm that you can see that?
Yes, we are good to go.
Awesome. So just as Serena was talking about, we are going to go to the main MLC page, and you're going to come up here in the right-hand corner where you see this blue Connect to Collect button. That's going to be your first step. So you can go ahead and click on that. And as you see, it'll give you some instructions step by step. And at the very bottom, you'll hit the other Connect to Collect button. And this is going to take you to what we call our form to create a user account. So I want to make sure that we differentiate between becoming a user and a member. So a user is going to be you as your personal individual person. Your member is going to be either your publishing entity, your company name. It's the business that's signing up that's going to be registering the works. So this first part is just you as a person, and you're going to want to make sure for that reason that you're putting your personal information. So you don't want to put any of your business information here. We go through a verification check. And so if you put your business information, we're not going to be able to do that check and make sure that you get verified. And you need to be verified in order to create a member. So just keep in mind when you're filling out this first form that it is your personal information.
And this is just so we know what human beings are accessing our portal. You are going to be setting up that other information about, how you want people to think of you as a rights holder on the song in a few minutes and a few more steps. But this is just you as a human gaining access to a system.
Yes, exactly. And just want to also point out that this information that you're putting in this form is not going to be listed in our public database. So just want to verify that as well. So when you submit this information, you'll come down here and click the sign up button. And that is going to prompt an email to be sent to you, letting you know that you got verified. If you didn't get verified for some reason, reach out to our support team and we can look into that for you. But you'll receive that email. It will prompt you to set up your password and what we call our multi-factor authentication code. This is a code that you'll need each time you sign into the MLC portal. And this can be sent to you either via text message or email. So whichever one works for you. And then we will pop over here. So when you get that email, you're going to log in and it's going to prompt you to create a member account. So just as we were talking about, the user is the personal information, this member account is now going to be how you want to set up your business within the MLC portal. So there's a few ways to do this. It just kind of depends on what kind of member you're going to be. So let's say you're a self-administered songwriter and maybe you have a publishing entity set up through your PRO, BMI, ASCAP, CSAC. And we encourage, if you are a self-administered songwriter and you have a publishing entity set up through your PRO, that's what you use as the member name. Because essentially the member name, in most cases, we want to match whatever the publisher name is on the works, especially if you're a self-administered songwriter, that's going to be kind of a one-to-one relationship. So that's one way. If you're a larger publisher, maybe you set up your member account with the business name, and then we do have the ability to essentially add multiple publishing entities within one account. You'll just have to reach out to our support team in order to do that. But let's just walk through this form and it'll ask you a few questions and then you'll be able to submit it from there. So this first question is going to ask you to select your member type. So kind of as I was saying, maybe you're self-administered songwriter, publisher, CMO, as Serona was talking about earlier. Maybe I'm a manager and I am responsible for signing up a bunch of my writers on their behalf. Then you could sign up that way as well. And then of course, an administrator. So you're going to want to choose one of these options. And then the second question is just verifying if you have a publisher, administrator, CMO, or digital distribution service collecting US digital audio mechanicals on your behalf. So this is essentially asking, maybe you are signed up with CD Baby and you don't actually need to register directly with the MLC. That's what this question is asking. Do you have anybody that you're aware of that is collecting these specific royalties on your behalf? And if that's a yes, you're not going to become eligible to be a member, because that person, that administrator, publisher, whoever is collecting on your behalf, should be registering those works for you. So
Let me
that
just
will have,
add, let me build on to
yeah,
that, just to expand, because I know you mentioned CD Baby. So
Mhm.
one of the things that people can get confused about is that some of those digital distribution companies like CD Baby, TuneCore, DistroKid, just to name a couple, right? They provide several different services, and you need to understand which services you've signed up for with them. So their bread and butter, if you will, what they all got started doing was just distribution of sound recordings, right? And that's what most people use them for. That's the first thing you probably go to them for. But then over time, some of those companies have added additional services they provide to include publishing administration for the songs that you've made recordings of, right? And so sometimes, some of them offer those services, some of them don't. And maybe you signed up for them to provide that to you. Maybe you didn't. Only you can confirm that, really. You need to make sure to understand, did I sign up and am I using CD Baby just for digital distribution of my sound recordings, but I am handling all the publishing administration? Or when I signed up for those sound recordings to be distributed, did I also authorize them to act as my publishing administrator, or maybe just to collect my mechanicals, right? So you need to check that with whatever company you've signed up with and get a really clear understanding of whether you've authorized them to collect your mechanicals or not. Thanks, Riley.
Yeah, that's a great point, and people mix those up a lot. I would also say you can always use our public search to go in and see, if that specific service is collecting on your behalf. That's another good way to check. So that's a great point. And so we're going to come down next to the member name, and the member name is going to be whatever the business name is that you're using, whatever the publisher name is, administrator name. It's going to be, again, focused on the business, not you as a person. So for example, maybe I'm a self-administered songwriter and I am signed up with ASCAP and I have my own publishing entity set up with ASCAP. So I'm going to use that as my member name. So maybe it's Bershback Publishing. And again, this is because, like Serona was saying earlier, that the PROs, they pay out for both writer and publishing share, whereas the MLC is only paying out for mechanicals, which get paid to publishers. So we want to know what the publishing name is. You will not need to create a separate member account for you as a writer, just as the publisher. And then this next section here is our identifier section. And this first one is your publisher account number. This is going to be if you are a Harry Fox agency affiliate, you will be able to find this number in your HFA portal. This is because we have a relationship with Harry Fox where we hired them to be one of our vendors. So if you have that, we call it a P number, a publisher number, you can go ahead and link that to your MLC account. And maybe there are already works associated with your Harry Fox account. Those will be showing up in your MLC account due to that relationship of us hiring them as one of our vendors. If you're not sure what Harry Fox is, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. Just skip over it. It's completely optional. Next thing is the IPI number. So that is going to be the publishing IPI number. A lot of you as writers might be more aware of a writer IPI, and you don't want to put the writer IPI there. You only want to put this there if you have a publishing IPI, that identifier number. And then this last, or I guess the second to last section, is the member address. So If you're a self-administered songwriter and you yourself are the publisher, you most likely are just going to be using your user information. So you can actually click this box right here, and that will pre-populate that information that you use for the user information. If you have a separate business address for your account, then you can put this there as well. So I just kind of put some test information, fake information there just to show you what that looks like. And then our last section here is the member contact. So this is going to be the public facing contact information. This email here is going to be able to show us in the public search how to contact you if we need to contact you for any reason. It's also good just for other publishers to know how to reach out to each other, and this is that way to do that. So I'll also point out here, make sure that this country code is selected. Some people will move over that, so just want to make sure that that is populated. And then you will accept.
Wait, don't go off the screen yet. Hold on, maybe I want to highlight a couple of things. So
Please do.
firstly, like, so common questions I know we get a lot. So let's say that I've never signed up with a PRO yet. And so I think I want to call it Sirona Songs, but I've never actually signed up with a PRO yet. What should I use as a member name? Can I just use Sirona Elton? What should I use?
So we encourage, even if you haven't signed up with a PRO as a publisher, to differentiate your member name from your writer name. So like you said, maybe it's Sirona Songs or Elton Songs. It doesn't have to be an official entity in order to create your member as that way.
So that's a critical point as well. You don't have to have decided to create an LLC or a corporation or some legal entity, okay? This can just be essentially like you doing business as. You don't have to go and create a legal entity in order to do this. What I would like to suggest is that you should perhaps think about signing up with a PRO, in that there's actually quite an involved process with the PRO of making sure, if I wanted to call it Elton Songs, for example, I don't know, Elton John might already be using that, right? The PRO goes through a process of, when you sign up as a publisher with the PRO, you submit several names you'd like to see if you can use. They will evaluate those and confirm back what name you can use. So you don't have to, but you might want to do that first, so that you know for certain that that's now the name you want to use for all of your publishing work stuff across PROs and with the MLC. It's no big deal if I put Elton Songs here and then later I join ASCAP, and ASCAP's like, you can't use Elton Songs being used. You have to change it. No big deal. I could change it with ASCAP, go with Sirona Songs, and then come back to the MLC and say, I have to change my name. No problem, but you might want to knock that out first. Just something to think about, right? The other thing is, when you go through that process with that PRO of saying, I want to use Elton Songs, right? PRO is a performing rights organization. Performing rights organization. So if I go through that process and get Elton Songs signed up with ASCAP, they will assign Elton Songs a publisher IPI. And now I'll have the number to use in that publisher IPI field. If I didn't do that process, even if I use Elton Songs here, I will not, the IPI field will be left blank, because only those PROs assign a publisher IPI, right? And I should not use my writer IPI in that field. So, so there are some benefits to sort of signing up first with a PRO to get that name confirmed and to get that publisher IPI. It's fine if you have not done that. You can come back and add or modify that later. But it just might be more efficient for you to kind of knock those things out first whatever your preference. And again, you do not have to create a company, an actual legal entity. That's not required in order to put Elton songs in here. Last question was for that phone number. Is a phone number required, Raleigh? Because what if I only have my cell phone and I really didn't want that on the internet?
So the phone number is listed as required. So yes, it is.
So that I may want to look into some of those. There's some online services where you can basically, you don't have to go through, like you don't have to get a whole nother cell phone number, right? You can get like a digital number assigned that will then forward things to your phone or just send you a digital message. So just keep in mind, this does end up on the website, which can be a great thing because somebody might be wanting to license your music for something and they find you this way, right? Somebody's like, I love that song on Spotify. I don't know who to contact to put it in my movie. Well, you know, everybody knows about the MLC's database. They might look it up in our database and find that information and contact you for an amazing opportunity. So, you know, I think you can look at it like a good thing, but just be aware, right? This number is visible. So you might want to, if you want to have a business number that's like a second number than your actual cell phone, that's what you use when you're conducting business and that's what you share more widely, you may want to get that in place first. All right. Thanks, Raleigh.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are all great points. So after you have everything filled out, you can go ahead and scroll down and hit this next button. Oh, make sure everything is actually filled out correctly. No, I do not have anyone collecting on my behalf. And then this new member survey question, again, is just going to ask you these two questions, kind of gauging how many songs you might be registering. So let's say I have 101 to 300, and I'm expecting to register up to 100 over the next year. Then you can hit this blue button, submit. Perfect. So you will see that you have this pending member under your profile. You can toggle over this members tab. You will also receive an email letting you know that the member has been submitted. It takes about 1 to 3 days for that to go into review. And once it's accepted, you'll receive another email letting you know that it's been accepted. And then you can move on to the next steps of registering works, which will be included in another webinar, but that is the member submission process.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you. I think it's important to point out it takes maybe a couple days to have this be reviewed, right? What's the typical length before that member is approved, the creation of that member is approved?
It should be about 1 to 3 days. If you're seeing it take longer than that, reach out to our support team and we can look into why there might be a holdup.
Got it. So, so it's not instant, but it is pretty quick, 1 to 3 business days, probably there. Awesome. And then absolutely right. We're going to talk about registering songs in another webinar. But one other thing, just I'll put in a plug for, we won't show you the screens, but I'll put in a plug for, which is that, you know, once you're all set up, you want to set up your banking details as well. We don't mail checks to the address. That's not the way it works. And you wouldn't want us to either. There's a much more secure way to get paid. And that's by electronic funds transfer. We can mail a check. I'm not saying an absolute not, but that's not the way that this generally works. I believe the best way, the safest way, the fastest way to get paid is to set up a direct banking deposit. And so that is something that an additional step that you can do and should do in addition to registering your works.